The pantyhose mystery has just been solved, and oh my God, I am so here for this. So you'll remember last week, Meghan Markle gave this completely bizarre softball interview to Bloomberg and a woman called Emily Chang. And when she was asked nothing to do with the royal family, Meghan decided that she wanted to make another dig, but this time specifically used the phrase nude pantyhose. I'll tell you why in just one moment. It involves Princess Charlotte and some terrible headlines in regards to Meghan's wedding, which she wants scrubbed from the internet. But first, just in case you missed that interview on Bloomberg, here's what Meghan said.
Is there an inherent tension in trying to be relatable while also being a duchess?
No, I don't find, I'm just being myself. So I think probably it was different several years ago where I couldn't be as vocal and I had to wear nude pantyhose all the time. Let's be honest, that was not very myself. I hadn't seen pantyhose since movies in the 80s when they came in the little egg. That felt a little bit inauthentic, but that's a silly example. But it is an example of when you're able to dress the way you want to dress and you're able to say the things that are true and you're able to show up in the space really organically and authentically. That's being comfortable in your own skin. And that's, of course, had different chapters in my life. But right now, no, I don't feel that I need to prove anything.
So why did Meghan specifically use the term nude pantyhose? Well, in another part of the interview, she spoke about knowing what SEO is. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Meghan was trying to bury a story from the past that she has become embarrassed about. As Meghan's mole explained, the real reason why Meghan Markle released that stupid story about pantyhose, when you search Meghan and pantyhose, nothing about her bullying Princess Charlotte over hose during that spectacle wedding pops up. It was all about manipulating the SEO. Lauren Lunn Farrow, PR professional extraordinaire. She's represented many of the stars, royal commentator and YouTuber, joins me now. Lauren, Meghan is so crafty, but she's not as clever as she thinks. Because why later in the interview was she boasting about how she knew all about SEO? I'm absolutely convinced that this was a planned attempt not only to get headlines through slagging off the royal family, but because she knows that the pantyhose story and her behavior towards Princess Charlotte on her wedding day haunts her, but it's completely true. This has blown that story out of the SEO. And now if anyone searches for pantyhose and Meghan Markle, all they hear about is the Bloomberg interview.
One phrase in a glossy interview reignites the bullying allegations tied to Catherine and Princess Charlotte. Tonight, what was said, what was sent, and why it still stings. Asked about authenticity, Meghan name drops nude pantyhose. Critics say that choice wasn't random, it's a search term with baggage. When that keyword spikes in headlines, older stories about wedding week friction with Catherine and Charlotte get pushed down the results. Strategy or coincidence? The timing speaks volumes.
Yeah, look, everything that Meghan does is so overthought before it happens. There is nothing off the cuff. There's nothing natural about Meghan. So this is a prime example of her absolutely micromanaging every single thing she does. And it's hugely manipulative. And it just shows exactly how she operates. But, you know, she might get this story kind of pushed down the news agenda or the kind of Google list with SEO. But she is still Meghan Markle. So I'm afraid, Meghan, we will still see more of your disingenuous self as time goes on. And you can't continue to vary it with SEO consistently, because we have many, many other examples of where she has been catty, not very nice, the countless bullying allegations. This isn't a one-off that someone has thought, this is really unfair and inaccurate, I want it taken out of, the Google search frame. No, there are so many examples of her behaving like this. So it will continue to spiral out of control. And, she might have been able to squash one story, but she can't change public perception regardless of who her SEO expert may or may not be.
How common is it, Charlotte? I mean, you have worked with Lauren. Charlotte's on my mind. Princess Charlotte's on my mind. Lauren, how common is it for celebrities? I mean, you've worked with a whole load of the biggest celebrities in the United Kingdom. How common is it now for them to be aware of their SEO, of how they appear on platforms like Google? Big news! Outspoken is now available as a podcast too. So please do subscribe wherever you get yours, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you rate and review. I'll take 5 stars, if you may.
Huge. And not only are they aware of their own SEO, it's their competitors as well. So they'll often look at, what jobs they're getting, their SEO, their social numbers, everything like that. But then they're looking at other people's as well, because it's a hugely competitive arena. We live in a time now where you will never have a celebrity say, I have too much great press, I have too many, social media followers. And that hunger for constant control it's like unleashing the beast. There are some celebrities that will engage certain lawyers to wipe certain stories off the internet, things that are unfavorable, because obviously the internet's there forever, but it's a huge task and it's impossible because what celebrities don't understand is, yes, maybe they can get a story pushed down the Google search engine, but the public have so many different ways of speaking now, and we can't be controlled. We're not being told what to say. We all have our own opinions that we share across social media channels. So it's kind of totally pointless doing that.
What's really interesting, though, is that I think Meghan has become quite obsessed with the specifics of the circumstances with Charlotte. For good reason, really, because how on earth do you recover, Lauren, from, and this is very much my understanding, of making your niece, right? Your young niece totally distraught on your wedding day. It's totally unacceptable. Plus, she was so burnt by the story about making Catherine cry. And you'll remember she even, in spare, via Prince Harry, allowed her husband, or I would argue encouraged her husband, to publish private text message correspondence between Catherine and Meghan, which he claimed proved her position. I'm not sure it does. I mean, this is the text exchange. Just a reminder, Lauren. Catherine wrote, Charlotte's dress is too big, too long, too baggy. She cried when she tried it on at home. Meghan replied, right, and I told you the tailor has been standing by since 8 a.m. here at Kensington Palace. Can you take Charlotte to have it altered as the other mums are doing? It's like so passag, right? You are speaking, can I just remind you, Meghan, to the future damn Queen of England, okay? Not your best mate from Canada, ex-best mate. Catherine replies, no, all the dresses need to be remade. Meghan replies, I'm not sure what else to say. If the dress doesn't fit, then please take Charlotte to see AJ. He's been waiting all day. Catherine replies, fine. Now, I don't see that text exchange as the big slam dunk that Harry and Meghan thinks it is, because at the end of the text exchange, Catherine agrees to go and do what Meghan wants her to do. And actually, I'm no fashion expert, Lauren, but you've got daughters. A lot of people look at those pictures of Charlotte on the wedding day and say, well, you know much more about this. You go into this because basically your researchers, and lots of people are saying, even though they're Givenchy dresses, actually they were not made properly. So Catherine was right.
Yeah, they weren't made properly. If you look at Princess Charlotte's dress, the hem was not done properly. Now, whilst I'm no fashion expert, I did extensively research this and found a seamstress that had given great detail on how shoddy the work was on Princess Charlotte's dress. And I think it's really important to remember that, you know, Catherine understands the enormity of something like the royal wedding. She also understands that the world's eyes are on her daughter, not just the world's eyes looking at, you know, how she's behaving, but they are the royal family. This was a huge event. So
And it's
everything
forever.
is
It's forever.
and it is forever.
Those
Correct.
pictures are forever.
Yeah. And I think this is another clear example of Meghan not falling into the system, not understanding how it works, because they really, you know, and this is what from people I've been told, you know, Catherine is a team player and she's very easy to work with. We know that Meghan isn't. And it would seem that Catherine could see what was coming. You know, it's a terrible look for Charlotte to be in a baggy dress, not made properly. But it seems that Meghan was bridezilla.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely, she was bridezilla. Remember, Catherine had quite recently, you know, given birth to Louis. There was all of that going on too. And of course, it was a stressful time, but exactly, it's about the reasons why. And then you come back to the pantyhose claim anyway, Lauren. And by the way, there's lots of pictures, and we've got a whole load of them, of Meghan wearing nude pantyhose. But again, my sources are absolutely clear. Meghan was never told by a courtier, you must wear this. Any advice was given in the nature of trying to help this woman, trying to make things better for her, which of course she moaned about in the Oprah interview, didn't she? When she tried to claim that no one had helped her. Well, that was rubbish. And the idea that Meghan was some shrinking little depressed violet who couldn't stand up for herself, well, it's disproven by that photo, this photo right here, because she was advised that day, Lauren, to wear a hat. She was advised to wear a hat. She wasn't told to wear a hat. And guess what? She refused. Yes, Queen Elizabeth II was horrified on a personal level. She didn't show it in public. She was all over Meghan. Absolutely beautiful scenes, laughing, making it clear that she was welcoming to this woman within the family. So at the end of the day, Meghan was given advice, but that's all it was, Lauren. It was helpful advice to try and make her path into the royal family easy. And very often she chose to ignore it. And the courtiers were like, that's absolutely fine. You know, she's a grown woman. She can do what she wants. If she doesn't want to wear a hat, we're not going to kick up a stink. And so the idea that they were forcing her, that, you know, some type of courtier was at the bed, at the bottom of the bed saying, here's the nude pantyhose from M&S, put your leg through this. It's rubbish. And at the time, Lauren, Meghan's team were even using this to try and sort of show how she had ingratiated herself to the ways of the UK. Do you remember The Sun ran an article talking about how Meghan loved M&S pantyhose? And of course, that was just PR nonsense. But she is trying to rewrite history here.
Here's the sequence as widely discussed. In the run-up to the wedding, princess dress fit issues triggered a tense exchange. As published in Spare, 2023, Catherine texted that Charlotte's dress was too big divided by too long divided by too baggy, and that Charlotte had cried. Meghan replied that the tailor was standing by and suggested alterations. Supporters frame this as normal pre-wedding logistics. Critics characterize it as pressure and coldness toward a visibly upset child fuel for the ongoing bullying narrative. Either way, those images of a tearful bridesmaid and the rumor mill that followed never fully faded, and that's the reputational landmine today's interview stepped on.
I mean, she's trying to rewrite history, but also, like, if the biggest problem she has is wearing nude tights, I mean, this just shows yet again how out of touch she is.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. She whines all the time. It's always everyone else's fault. And at the end of the day, people were trying to give her advice. You are not on Deal or No Deal, you know, with your fake lashes. Now, you are in the royal family and there is protocol. And, you know, I would argue that people within the royal household are very well equipped to advise someone who claims to have known nothing and then come into the royal fold. You know, when you are in front of the world's press, it makes absolute sense to wear nude tights, particularly for, you know, if your legs are shiny or just for a smarter look. You know, no one told her you must wear these, but she's a fool to have not consistently taken a lot of the advice that was given.
But she always ignored it. This is the thing. It's like, don't start trying to say you were forced to do these things. You ignored it all the time. Do you remember she turned up to the Invictus Games? Now, this was before the wedding, but in ripped jeans. Now, again, totally your choice. If that's how you believe you should be shown on the international stage. But that is your choice, and it's not something that the royal family thought was a good idea, but it's also not something they told you not to do.
Well, it's like when I first met my now in-laws, I was going to wear trainers and ripped jeans, and my husband said, maybe not wear that. And I was like, okay, no problem. I didn't take it as him saying, you must not wear ripped jeans and trainers. I thought, no, this is the first impression. I should probably not go dressed as, you know, Lily Allen or whatever. So I wore something smarter, and I took that advice because he gave me advice that was appreciated. And, you know, like, Meghan coming into this, she just couldn't deal with not being in control. And then, you know, you get the Sussex squad going, you woman basher, anything she does is wrong. No, but, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but if it's not going to drink, what can you do?
Totally. And like, at the end of the day, I know, because I know the courtiers, I know the people that were working behind the scenes at that time, the members of the Sussex Survivors Club too, and they were very, very much going down the path of, look, we do accept that this is not some young virgin. Do you know what I mean? This is not Princess Diana, or this is not some innocent girl just straight out of university. This is an accomplished professional. I mean, Lauren, for God's sake, they wanted her to continue acting. It's like it is just a totally twisted narrative.
Thank goodness she didn't.
Oh, God. Well, maybe it would have been better for everyone if she had. Look, this Prince Harry, Diana stuff just gets darker, I think, actually. Rob Shooter now revealing, let me take you to the story, that he is planning a movie, a Diana movie, writing, Prince Harry is reaching for the one story guaranteed to sell his late mother's. Sources tell Shooter Scoop the Duke of Sussex is in advanced talks with Netflix to produce a dramatic feature film about Princess Diana, a last-ditch gamble to rescue his fading Hollywood career. It's the ultimate card to play, one Hollywood insider explains. Nothing sells like Diana. If Harry can package her story as a movie, Netflix keeps him on the payroll. This is the hit he needs to survive. But Buckingham Palace is already livid. Courtiers call the potential project exploitative and warn it could reopen decades-old wounds about Diana's turbulent life and tragic death. William is particularly outraged but not surprised, one royal source says. To him, their mother's memory is sacred, not something to be bargained in a Netflix deal. Harry and Meghan's $100 million Netflix contract has already been quietly reduced after disappointing viewership for previous projects, including Meghan's lifestyle show. Netflix wants guaranteed eyeballs, a Hollywood exec says, and Diana delivers, period. Another source puts it bluntly, Harry is playing the Diana card because it's the only one he has left. Now, what's different, of course, Lauren, is that we knew that he's in talks about a documentary series for Netflix, but of course, a Diana movie with Harry's stamp of approval is another bargaining chip, because remember, if he's sort of, even though the first look deal is disastrous for them on so many levels, like it's not much money, you know, all of that, they're in trouble. What it does mean is that he can now put pressure on Netflix with the projects that are actually decent projects. So, for example, no one gave a damn about his, you know, polo documentary. Like, who else would have wanted that? No one. Or, you know, his Invictus Games documentary. But all of a sudden, when he's got a Princess Diana package and it's like a documentary series and a movie, he can now say to Netflix, well, if you don't want this, I take this to the open market and then try and create a bidding war. It's all very dark and very grim, given his promise with William not to commercialize his mother's memory, but it's clearly what's going to happen.
I mean, I think I always want to be fair and take things story by story. And I think, Harry obviously is probably coming from the point of view that everyone has had their say on his mother and he wants to. And I absolutely understand that. Where I struggle with this is that a kind of glossy Netflix film is entertainment. And I think that's a very dangerous area to be in, because a lot of information will be distorted. And there's a lot that can be added in that isn't factually true, that will get past the kind of legalities that all of these shows and scripts have to go through. And I think that's very dangerous, because it's giving the kind of Harry seal of approval and it's looking like it is very much real. Anything with Netflix and Harry and Meghan, to me, it gives me the ick now. I just can't take it seriously.
Why does this stick? Because the allegations center on tone and empathy, firmness versus insensitivity, protocol versus compassion for a young niece on a global stage. To critics, the texts read like status over softness, a bride enforcing standards, while a parent flags a distraught child. To defenders, it's misread logistics, later spun into something darker. But public memory isn't subtle. Once the bullying Catherine divided by Charlotte headline set, every new clip is judged against it.
So I would argue that if he really did want to honour his mother's memory, this potentially wouldn't be the best way to do it. Because it just, for me, feels like a big blockbuster money kind of let's bank the proper, let's get those views in because nothing else has worked. And this is a disaster.
But that is what it is. I mean, that is the reality.
Yeah.
And this is the problem.
It's very classless. And, like I say, obviously he lost his mother, and I'm aware that he would probably want to do something in her honor, but this to me doesn't feel like she would be honored for any reason apart from bank balance. And that doesn't feel good at all. It doesn't feel good that he would use that to capitalize, to keep a deal that is, we've seen Netflix don't want the deal. Everyone said, oh, it's a new deal. No, it's not. There's a clause in every single contract whereby you give them first refusal of future projects. That's all it is. So, we know it's done and dusted unless Harry and Meghan pull something mega out of the case. And this is, to me, a last-ditch attempt, and it's a classless one.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it is so important that, yet again, you just explained from an industry point of view, this Netflix deal is so not a deal. It's like an off-ramp for a corporate that doesn't want to fall out with people who are powerful. They did exactly the same thing with the Obamas. And since the First Look deal with Netflix and the Obamas have finished, well, what have the Obamas had to do? They've had to go down the desperation path. Michelle Obama, now on that podcast, awful podcast with her brother, slagging off her own marriage on a weekly basis. And unfortunately, I think that is the trajectory of where we are heading here. Maureen Callahan of the Nerve podcast has been reporting that Meghan wants a chat show. Because it feels like, what does she have left?
We don't need that. We've had to sit through, Dan, we have had to watch series 2. We don't need a chat show. I can't commit to watching that. Netflix really, those in control need to put the fact that Meghan has probably sent them all wine and chutney and whatever and had them round to the house in Montecito. Their egos are probably being massaged. I'm afraid, Netflix, you need to look at the figures, because your books are not balancing. They have not been worth the money you paid them. The public do not like them. Okay? End the deal.
End the deal, exactly. But look, the thing is, to all intents and purposes, the deal is dead. Netflix can pick and choose, just like it now picks and chooses with the Obamas. Look, I want to get an update from you on this Daily Mail campaign against Catherine and William, which has been raging, because Canal Citadel, who I think always does really great analysis, has really looked into this and has sort of discovered actually that Daily Mail supporters are turning off them because of their constant attacks on Catherine and William. So look at this. She writes, After the Daily Mail going on a full week of attack on the Prince and Princess of Wales last week, crowned with their nastiest Palace Confidential episode centred on bashing the Wales and promoting Harry, they found out exactly how the public felt. The video was for the first time split with 11,000 dislikes to 11,000 likes. Per AI analysis, out of 4,632 comments, 96% were negative and only 3.87% were neutral or positive. People were talking about unsubscribing and they meant business. They were at 480,000 subscribers during that episode. After it, they were at 476,000. That is 4,000 followers lost in 7 days. You can tell they swallowed a hard pill because today's episode was only Rebecca English and Joe Alvin. None of the other culprits from last week's debacle were on the show. They did not want the public to see those faces and remember they forgot to unsubscribe too. So the Daily Mail editor was there to smooth the numbers. For once, they had zero criticism on the Wales. On the contrary, Rebecca English said she disagreed with everything that's been said last week about William and Catherine, as if she was not the one writing the first article with the talking points. She said they can live where they want to. The question is just about Buckingham Palace. What are they going to do? How are they going to justify? Are they going to open up more? The Daily Mail pulled on the cord and found out if you attack the Wales, they will not defend themselves, but it is the public who will come for you. In the end, all the press cares about is their money. By losing 4,000 subscribers a week, the Daily Mail realised they cannot sustain their attacks a second week, so now they will recalibrate and try more insidiously in their attacks, but we will be there. The era where the press used to dictate the public sentiment and lord it over public figures is completely over with in 2025. Now, that is such an interesting point, Lauren Lunn-Farrow, one you speak about a lot. You know, the mainstream media losing their power and having to be driven by the audiences. Now, of course, I always believe in fair criticism of all members of the royal family. I do believe in that, and not everyone likes my coverage of all members of the royal family. However, Lauren, this was a different thing going on with the Daily Mail. It was so transparent what they were doing. The attack dogs were unleashed. You know, Amanda Patel, Liz Jones. It was like following all of the talking points from Montecito. And it was awful. It was over the top and awful. It wasn't like fair criticism about individual points. It was like a total takedown of this couple, basically just because they'd help the son out on a story in regards to their future home.
Yeah, I think this is the Mail. They were dipping their toe to see how it went, and I think they thought their readers maybe getting narrative fatigue and they wanted to try some new narratives out. But you know what is brilliant is that we the people have the power. So, you know, whilst Catherine and William aren't able to fight back and talk, the great British public can. And it's just so, it sums up the mainstream media. You know, it's pantomime, it's not real. And there are people behind these headlines. You know, this is our future king and queen. I just don't think that's a way to be speaking about them whatsoever.
No, very, very good point. And of course, if you want much more of this, then you have to subscribe to Lauren Lunn-Farrow Media. She is now on YouTube too, and she has a video actually all about the whole With Love Meghan debacle, which you are going to want to watch. Of course, you can also find Lauren on Instagram and X as well.
Flooding the web with fresh pantyhose headlines might reorder search pages, but it can't reorder emotions. When a narrative involves a mother and her upset child, audiences hardlock on empathy first, algorithms second. If this keyword drop was an attempt to rewrite the past, it only highlighted the one chapter the public refuses to forget.